like to make a call, please hang up and try again.
Taylor Denise Schabusiness is a wife and mother. Her toddler son is living with his grandparents in Texas. Her husband Warren is currently incarcerated for federal drug charges, and her father is locked away for second-degree sexual assault of a child. Taylor Schabusiness is on trial for the murder of her longtime friend and occasional paramour, Shad Therian. Police were called to Therian's mother's home after his mother reported finding her son's severed head in a bucket.
Okay, be seated. Is the state ready to call your next witness?
Yes, the state calls Baeleigh.
Thank you. Ms. Shannon, can you state for the record how you are employed?
I'm the Assistant Director for Brown County Public Safety Communications, such as the 911 Dispatch Center.
Can you just explain for the jury how the 911 Dispatch Center works in Brown County and how it relates to the other law enforcement agencies?
So the 911 Center takes the calls for all law enforcement, ambulance services, and fire departments within Brown County. As part of that, all calls and radio traffic that come in through our center are recorded, and then they are held in our center as evidence for 120 days. As we're requested by agencies, we release that evidence back to them because it's technically their evidence. We're just the holders of that evidence.
Okay, tell me what's happening there again.
I have no clue what's happening. My girl swears that she's found her severed head of her son in the basement.
Did you go down there?
In a bucket. I went down. I can't tell what the fuck. Part of my language. I'm kind of a little freaked out.
Okay, did she just wake up and say that?
Yeah.
And whose head is it?
She's claiming it's her son.
How old is her son?
24, 25.
Has he been missing, or?
No, yeah, he was here yesterday with some chick, and then all of a sudden nobody's here. And she came up to use the restroom a couple times.
So there's something in the bucket.
There's something in the goddamn bucket there.
Okay.
If she won't look again, I don't know what the hell, man.
Do you think she's hallucinating, or do you think that?
I don't think so. I went down and there's something in the damn bucket. I don't know, man. She's a little freaked out and kind of freaking me out.
Hello?
Hi, Kara. So can you tell me what's going on?
Very positive my son's head is in a bucket, a young bucket in my basement.
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
And what did you see?
Exactly what I told you.
Okay, where's the rest of the body at?
No idea.
Okay. What is your son's name?
Shad Therian.
C-H-A-D?
S-H-A-D.
How do you spell his last name?
T-H-Y-R-I-O-N.
What's his date of birth?
9/7/97.
Is there blood down there?
No.
Okay. All right, ma'am. I have officers that are headed over to your house right now, okay?
Head over.
Okay, I'll go down there.
At that time, on February 23rd, 2022, did your department utilize body-worn cameras?
Yes.
Is that something that was operating on that day?
Yes.
And did you have the chance to review your body-worn camera prior to your testimony today?
Yes, I did.
Where's it at?
So right there. Look right. There's a bucket with a towel on it.
Just keep that.
I know you're busy over there, but this is actually what it's going to be. It's not going to be a 961 thing or a 96 thing, so we're going to need more units here. Was that for everyone? No for right now.
I started off as the deputy lead medical legal investigator. I then moved up to the lead medical legal investigator and have since been moved into the director of operations position.
And what was your position with the Brown County Medical Examiner's Office in February of 2022?
In February of 2022, I would have been the lead medical legal investigator.
And what is a medical legal investigator?
So essentially, you could see us almost as a nurse in the hospital. We're the eyes and ears for the doctor, for our forensic pathologist.
And you talked about a forensic pathologist. What does the forensic pathologist generally do?
So generally, a forensic pathologist, if they're board certified, they are the ones that actually perform the autopsies and oversee all of the investigations the office does. So that morning, I believe a call was placed to our office by a detective with the Green Bay Police Department, just informing our office of the situation. That call was taken by the on-call investigator that was in the office at the time, and the policy at that, which is still in place, is that they are to then notify the lead medical legal investigator, which would have been me at that time, of such a case.
What was your understanding about the information law enforcement had collected at that point?
My understanding was that the head of a male individual had been found in the basement, and that they had reason to believe that there were additional human remains within the basement. They had informed me that they had a suspect at that time, and they informed me that there might be a secondary location for human remains as well. Presumptive identification at that point provided a name and date of birth, and we later then also asked for additional photographic evidence of for identification purposes for comparing.
And did the deceased have any distinct marks that allowed you to easily identify him?
Yes, he had a tattoo on his. I forget which side it was, but on one of the temporal regions on the side of your head here, it would have been a question mark. We moved on to the next container, which we suspected had human remains in it. There was, I believe it's a blue bag, was the second container that we looked at. From the outside, well, let me back it up. The blue bag would have been on a dresser in front of the bed in the basement, and there seemed to be what looked like some human tissue on the outside of the bag, and so we decided to focus in on that bag next. So if there are any items other than the human remains, the medical examiner's office, our purview is the human remains. So if there are other items of evidentiary value or possible evidentiary value, that's generally collected by law enforcement.
Okay. And were there other items of evidentiary value that were found within those containers while you were there?
Yes, we found knives in. I don't remember if all of the bags had knives, but we found multiple knives throughout the bags. One of my first observations, I guess, would have been that as you walk into the basement, there really wasn't a significant amount of blood that we could see as you walked in. we would have later noted, once we moved some things off the bed, that there was some what appeared to be blood staining on the mattress, and perhaps some small little pieces of tissue that were suspected to be human tissue in the carpeted area, but there was a shower in a laundry room nearby, and there seemed to be, again, some small pieces of what could have been human tissue. We were informed that there were potential human remains in a van that had been towed by the Green Bay Police Department to their evidence storage unit. So we initially just took photographs of the outside of the vehicle. I don't believe that the police had processed the vehicle yet at all. They were waiting to do that in conjunction with us. So we kind of peered in, just noting what was in the vehicle, and then we would have opened the doors and the trunk to take a look just at a general view of what was in the vehicle.
And did you locate anything of significance or any human remains within the vehicle?
Yes, we ultimately did find a crock pot box that had human remains in the box.
And what did you do once you packaged the human remains at the scene at Green Bay Evidence?
So we would have closed the evidence sheet, put it in the body bag, sealed that body bag, and transported the remains to our the Brown County Medical Examiner's cooler.
Baeleigh Andrae, Baeleigh, Andrae, Andrae.
Okay, and with that, the witness is yours, Mr. Saunders.
All right. Can you tell us how you're employed?
I'm employed with the Green Bay Police Department as a forensic specialist. I did all the photographs at the scene, and then assisted with taking swabs and assisted with collecting some of the evidence. It's a photograph of the shout bottle. It also has a latent that's labeled on it as latent 2.
Okay, I want to pause here and ask about that. So, what are latents?
Latents are going to be fingerprints that are not visible to the human eye unless they're processed with either like a powder or a chemical or with super glue, or you can also do different lights at oblique angles as well.
Okay, and in comparing latent 2 that we're looking at here, what comparison was able to be made with respect to Ms. Schabusiness's fingerprints?
It was a hit to the right middle finger of Schabusiness's 10-print card.
And I guess what's a 10-print card?
Anytime someone gets booked into jail, there'd be a 10-print card collected or a palm print card collected, and then it would be essentially connected to that record.
Okay. So there were multiple, I guess, latents or fingerprints that were located in this area?
Objection leading.
Right.
Overruled.
So were there multiple, I guess, fingerprints located in this latent 3 area?
Yes.
Okay. And then want to ask about Exhibit 13. Is that still in front of you? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yes.
Okay, and what is Exhibit 13?
This is a knife with a brown handle and silver blade, and it's the photograph of it showing 2 different areas of interest that we were going to swab, one being the handle itself and one being the blade.
Did you process the crock pot box as well in terms of swabbing it?
Yes.
What area did you swab, if you recall?
I believe it was the red substance inside the box.
Sort of on the bottom of the box as we're looking at it?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, doctor, if you want to step up here then. And before you have a seat, if you could turn and face her and raise your right hand, she'll place you under oath.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Vincent Tranchida. I'm currently employed as a deputy medical examiner for Dane and Rock counties of Wisconsin.
And how long have you worked in the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office?
I began my employment at the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office on July 1st, 2011.
You are currently the deputy medical examiner there. Have you held other positions at the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office?
Yes, I have.
And what other positions have you held?
I was previously Chief Medical Examiner of the Dane County Medical Examiner's Office for approximately 12 years.
And what was Dane County's relationship with Brown County at that point in time?
At that point in time, Brown County did not have a medical examiner's office, so we were providing coverage and assistance with forensic services for Brown County. I further went on to do subspecialties in forensic cardiac pathology and forensic neuropathology. I served as a senior medical examiner in New York City for approximately 8 years before I went on to accept the position as chief in Dane County.
So, Doctor, in total, how many years have you worked professionally as a postgraduate and post, I think you had fellowship as well, and a post-fellowship medical examiner?
Approximately 20 years at this point.
And what are the primary job duties of a medical examiner?
As a medical examiner and as a forensic pathologist, my primary duties are to investigate the cause and manner of death in cases where there is a threat to public safety. Oftentimes people think of this as criminal activity, but it can also refer to communicable disease, workplace deaths, or any death where there is an unexpected and unexplained cause at the time of the discovery.
And can you describe for the jury sort of big picture on a scene like this, which is, I presume, unusual, what sorts of things you are looking for or attempting to ascertain as you're walking through the room and finding remains in various locations?
As I go through a room and evaluate the room, I'm looking for evidence of a disturbance, a struggle, or an altercation. I'm looking for signs of biological material which may tell me where a body part may be located. I'm also looking for evidence that may have contributed to the death. In other words, instruments, objects, weapons, evidence of drug paraphernalia. In this case in particular, I'm also looking for places that a body may be concealed, or that might be evidence of movement of a body from one location to another.
Doctor, you mentioned some of those things like weapons or the instrumentality of the crime. Were those things noted on your investigation or observation?
Yes, they were.
And what was noted specifically?
On a black standing table besides the bed, there was a gray metal chain. On the dresser, on the left wall of the basement, there was also a gray metal chain. Recovered from some of the containers as well were multiple knives, some of which had a bent blade and one of which had a broken tip. Upon beginning the examination, our first step is usually to take x-rays of the body. And this is a very helpful tool that we use to try to determine if there's any fractures, foreign objects, or what the general condition is of the skeletal system of the decedent. For this, the bag can be intact, which is a helpful way of doing it. Once the bag is opened, the next step is to begin to take as-is photographs. In other words, photographs of the body exactly as it's received, before it's cleaned, before it's washed, before anything is removed. The next step after that is to collect trace evidence, if any can be found. This can involve a sexual assault kit, swabs, fingernail clippings, everything in an effort to try to find any DNA evidence that might be useful. So typically at that point, we begin to take our inventory of what is present, and then we also begin to examine each fragment to see what is present, what is trauma, what is artifact, and what is real injury. The ultimate goal is to determine the cause and manner of death, but a secondary goal is to try to document the findings that are present, so that if somebody challenges or disagrees with these findings, that the evidence is there, that I can provide my explanation for my reasoning and a historical record of what goes on within the autopsy room. It is my medical opinion that the cause of death of Shad therein is strangulation, and that the manner of death is homicide. Along those lines, I had numerous petechial hemorrhages, or burst blood vessels, of the skin of the face, of the conjunctivae around the eyes, or the pink around the eyes. I had hemorrhages as well of the whites of the eyes, or the sclera, and I also had hemorrhages of the mucosa of the inside of the mouth. These are all consistent with sharp pressure being applied to the neck and the blood vessels of the neck, causing bursting of these blood vessels. In addition, the tongue was protuberant outside of the mouth, consistent with the tongue being driven up and outwards during the process of strangulation. These hemorrhages were not only in the neck muscles, but they were also in the soft tissues surrounding the trachea, or airway, or windpipe, surrounding the larynx, or upper airway, all the way down to the cervical spine, or the spinal column as it goes all the way down to the vertebra. In my examination, there was extensive post-mortem mutilation of the body. And I believe that this is post-mortem mutilation because there is no hemorrhage associated with these injuries. In other words, I have multiple sharp force trauma with multiple stab wounds, multiple punctures, multiple incised wounds of the skin, deep cuts within the muscles and tendons and soft tissue, deep cuts within the bone, but all of these cuts are non-hemorrhagic. In other words, there's no blood or bleeding associated with it. These are consistent with post-mortem mutilation. In other words, there's no circulation going on. There's very little blood actually still left within the vascular system. This is all consistent with the body being dismembered after death. This is the front page of what's referred to as my autopsy notes. And this allows me a front and back view of the body to depict findings. Also, a spot at the top where I can enter the general demographic features, in other words, weight of the body as it's recovered, approximated age, frame, hair color, eye color, what's the state of the postmortem changes, such as rigor mortis or livor mortis.
Doctor, you mentioned that you were present on scene and had the opportunity to observe two metal dog chains that were collected by law enforcement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you note any consistency between those chains that were collected and the marks that you observed on Chad Therian's body?
Yes, I did. Because there were so many findings, I separated out the head and neck diagrams to a separate diagram. This diagram depicts multiple different views of the decedent's head and neck.
I don't think I will ask you to describe every injury that's denoted on this particular diagram, as we would be here a while, but could you describe generally what is depicted in this diagram?
Of course. This is a front and back view of the decedent's body, where I'm attempting to show the points of dismemberment, as well as points of sharp force injury that are present. It is my medical opinion that this would be quite a few hours. We have decapitation, we have dismemberment, we have transection of the torso. Subsequently, internally, the body has been eviscerated. In other words, we have entered inside the body through various cuts, both at the abdomen and between the ribs, where the victim's organs have been removed, largely one by one. We have castration of the decedent. The decedent has been castrated as well. We have cutting or sawing through chop mark injuries of the bones. It is my medical opinion that this would have taken quite a great deal of time.
You were working as a patrol officer?
Yes,
is that
I
right?
was.
And were you utilizing any body-worn camera on that day?
Yes, I was.
And was it operational in your belief?
Yes, it was.
When a particular incident or an arrest is made, is there a way for you to sort of save that body camera footage to a system?
Yes.
Does that allow you the chance to then review that at a later date?
Yes.
And then do you enter that into your department system?
Yes.
And have you also had the chance to review portions of your body camera footage prior to testifying today?
Yes, I did.
Please, nobody, please, nobody. Nothing.
Hey. Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Or am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here?
Could possibly be blood.
Footprints on the path.
Hey, who did that? Hi, Taylor, how's it going? Officer Russell with the Green Bay Police Department. Just make sure you ain't got nothing on you here. With Taylor. Taylor, you have one more for your arrest. Just put your hands behind your back quick.
Anybody else here?
You, come over here. 2 more will be fine. If 84 is here.
Hands up!
You have contact with the male.
Hands up! Walk out towards me!
Have a seat.
All the traffic, Out towards me! Get on the ground!
Who else is in the apartment? Be straight up.
Thomas.
Tomes? Who else? Just Tomes? Is he armed?
Now!
Nobody's armed?
Nobody's armed.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Green Bay Police! Is anybody in here? Announce yourself now!
Go ahead.
Was that consistent with the body camera warrant footage that you were wearing on February 23rd?
Yes.
When you got to the Green Bay Police Department, what further steps did you take?
We placed her in interview room 3, I believe, where I had Officer Kenney assist me with taking photographs of what looked like smeared blood on her hands and on her clothing.
First name is Tim, last name Kenney, Kenney.
Okay, then Mr. Saunders, the witness is yours.
Can you tell us how you're employed?
I'm a patrol officer with the City of Green Bay.
And how long have you been employed in that capacity?
12 years.
And then what were you asked to do with respect to photographing Ms. Schabusiness?
There were, I guess, cuts on her hands and blood on her clothing, which I was asked to photograph.
And did you document, I guess, the exterior clothing areas?
Yes.
Okay, and what does 82 depict?
That would be the outer sweatshirt she was wearing, which had dried blood on it. The left leg of the black sweatpants.
Did you also observe a substance on that area?
Yes, there appeared to be matted blood in the area of the knees.
And then 86.
Would be the right leg of the black sweatpants.
And do exhibits 82 through 86, do those appear to be consistent with the clothing Ms. Schabusiness was wearing as you encountered her on February 23rd?
Yes.
My name is Kevin Scott.
Okay, and Mr. Lezay, the witness is yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Scott. Can you state for the record how you are employed?
I am a DNA analyst at the Wisconsin State Crime Laboratory in Madison.
And how long have you worked as a DNA analyst?
I've been there for about 10 years. Yes, as a DNA analyst, I examine crime scene evidence for the presence of bodily fluids such as blood, semen, or saliva. I then attempt to extract or release DNA from those bodily fluids or from any other source of DNA such as skin cells from touched items. I then attempt to generate a DNA profile. I analyze those DNA results and I make comparisons to DNA standards that are taken from known individuals. I will then prepare a written report of my results and conclusions. I received a buccal swab standard that was reportedly recovered from Taylor Schabusiness. That was item A. Item B was the right hand swabs reportedly recovered from Taylor Schabusiness. Item C was left hand swabs reportedly recovered from Taylor Schabusiness. Item D was oral swabs reportedly recovered from Shad Therian. Item E was swab reportedly from a blade. Item F was a swab reportedly from red substance inside of a box. Item G were swabs from a red substance on a bedroom light switch. Item H was sweatpants. Item I was penile swabs reportedly recovered from Shad Therian. And item J was a swab reportedly from a dildo. One is referred to as a presumptive testing for blood. This is a very quick test that relies on a color change after dropping a couple chemicals on the sample. And it doesn't require very much sample to be taken. However, that test is called a presumptive test because there are other substances out there that could possibly cause a positive result, even if blood is not present. This is some things that might cause that are rust, some metals, and some vegetable extracts could induce a positive result even if blood is not present. However, that is the more typical test that we use at our lab, just because of how quick and how little sample it uses. Another type of test that we have is a confirmatory test, which confirms the presence of blood on an object.
So once you develop those single source profiles, presumably both for Taylor Schabusiness and Shad Therian, did you then conduct comparisons for subsequent items that were analyzed?
Yes, I did. At that point, I analyzed this DNA mixture using a computer program called StarMix. StarMix is a tool that we use at our lab to help us interpret DNA mixture profiles. It works by modeling the DNA mixture by trying to determine the most likely individual contributor profiles that, when mixed together, can explain the mixture that we observed.
Is there any way to sort of quantify for the jury or describe how big of a number 1 quadrillion is?
1 quadrillion would be 1 followed by 15 zeros. It's also 1,000 trillion.
Okay. Now, was that 1 quadrillion, at least 1 quadrillion times, is that the exact number of the ratio in this case?
No, the numbers can go much higher. We cap that likelihood ratio at 1 quadrillion just to keep that number down in a range that's more recognizable, with 7 trillion being roughly 1,000 times the world's population. If that profile is more rare than 1 in 7 trillion, I will state that that individual is the source of that DNA. So for this particular sample, the swab from the blade, that single source male profile, I concluded that Shad Therian is the source of that DNA. Item F was a swab from red substance inside of a box. I developed a 2-person mixture, so two different people contributed DNA to that mixture. At least one of those 2 was male. For this particular mixture, one of those individuals contributed the vast majority of DNA to the mixture, and I was able to determine the major male contributor, which is the DNA profile from that one male individual who contributed the vast majority of DNA to the mixture. I then compared that major male contributor profile to the profiles from the DNA standards, and I concluded that Shad Therian is the source of that major male contributor profile.
Yeah, and did you conduct a similar analysis on item H2?
Yes, item H2 was a swabbing of a reddish-brown stain on the left leg of the sweatpants. I again developed a 2-person mixture, and one of those 2 was male. I was able to determine a major female contributor, and I concluded that Taylor Schabusiness is the source of that major female contributor DNA. I was also able to determine a minor male contributor, and I concluded that Shad Therian is the source of that minor male contributor DNA.
And again, those source attributions, is that because it's more than 1 in 7 trillion times more likely that it would be them than some other person?
So that 7 trillion number is not a likelihood ratio. It's a different type of stat. So it's a probability. So the probability of randomly selecting an individual from the population in general, that probability is more rare than 1 in 7 trillion.
I know that you found some very strong support for inclusion as it results from the the right and left hand swabs of Taylor Schabusiness, correct?
That's correct.
And basically, are you saying that you found DNA from Shadtherian on Ms. Schabusiness's hands? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that there's very strong support that DNA from Shadtherian is present on those swabs.
Okay. And if people are hanging out, going out for dinner or using drugs or whatever they're doing, and they have physical contact in some way, shape, or form, DNA can be transferred, correct?
That's possible, yes.
David Graf, Graf.
Do you have law enforcement experience prior to the Green Bay Police Department?
I do. I have 30 years of total law enforcement experience.
And what is your current role with the Green Bay Police Department?
I'm an investigator detective in the investigative division.
Were you called in to investigate a suspected homicide of Shadtherian?
Correct.
And what was your role in that investigation at the outset?
My initial roles was I arrived at the police department and received a briefing of what was going on, and I was informed that some family members of Mr. Therian were at the police department, and I was asked to interview. I was then informed that Taylor Schabusiness was now present at the police department. I was asked to interview her.
Subsequent to the February 23rd interview with Ms. Schabusiness, did you meet with her again for a second interview?
Yes.
And when did that take place?
February 28th, I believe.
And where was that interview?
That was also at the Green Bay Police Department in an interview room there.
You indicated that you had previous work as a narcotics investigator. Have you had an opportunity in the past to meet with and interview suspects who are under the influence of drugs?
Yes.
Did you note anything in Ms. Schabusiness's behavior, demeanor, or appearance that would have suggested that she was under the influence of narcotics at the time you were meeting with her on the 23rd?
I did not.
The information about Shad and what happened to him and where his body was, where did that information come from?
Ms. Schabusiness.
Did she, as it relates to the strangulation, did she make any statements about her observations of Shad as she was choking him with that chain?
Yes, she stated that his head turned purple.
Did you ask her whether she chose to stop at that juncture?
I did.
And what was her response?
She stated that she wanted to continue to see what happened. My understanding is that Shad had been laying on the bed, prone, face down, and she was on top of him. And so she was able to choke and control his body, so to speak, that even though he was struggling, she was able to still maintain control.
Did you ask her about how she felt about what she had done?
Yes.
And what were her responses?
Objection, relevance, yes, to elements, Your Honor.
I think they're certainly relevant as to her intent.
Overruled.
Her response was that she liked it.
Had she also at some point expressed some remorse or that she didn't necessarily want this to happen?
Initially, that was some of her comments, was that, it hadn't intended, but once she started to strangle Shad, that she found that she did enjoy it, and so she kept on strangling him.
Was she able to describe in detail the things that she did to dismember Shad?
Yes.
And again, are you matching that back up with information from investigators at the scene?
Correct.
Was she able to actually describe the types of bags or types of containers where she's placing body parts?
Yes.
And again, is that consistent with what investigators are later finding on the scene?
Yes. She described how she had sexual contact with the body.
It's just weird. I got like a weird flashback from it.
But what happened?
Yeah, it's short. It was real short.
What did you see?
It's just I don't even know anymore. Like it was weird. I was riding him like a donkey. Okay, and then like I think so. I think that's what was happening.
But does anybody like strangle the other person?
I like doing that a lot.
All right, so you like being strangled, like having your airway Or do you like doing it to somebody else?
I like doing it to somebody else.
Does Shad like to be strangled during sex?
I think so.
Have you done it before?
Yeah,
with him?
yeah, he does. He likes it.
So then you guys were boyfriend, girlfriend at one point? For how long?
Like 2 years.
2 years?
2 years.
2 years?
2 years.
And this is right after high school or
No, during high school.
during high school? Okay. And what year did you graduate?
16.
2016?
Yeah.
So you and Chad date after high school?
We seen each other.
Okay. All right. So you've always been friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I know I forgot the head. I wanted the head.
Did you bring anything with you?
Yeah, it's in the van.
What?
It's in the van. It's what is it? I think a foot maybe.
The what?
I think it's a foot.
A foot
leg?
in the van?
A leg maybe.
Did you figure he was dead then?
Yeah.
And what did you do?
Played with him a little bit.
Did you try to call his mom or dad or anybody else in the house? You try to call an ambulance? Why not? The chain goes around his neck and you start choking him. And you just realized that he was going to die or what?
I'm just like, shit. I think I went a little too far because I was blacking out while I was doing it, right? And then like, fuck. And then like, I look at him, I'm like, shit, he's already purple. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I don't know if he's fucking.
You know, they have a bunch of questions for us that we really can't answer. And the biggest questions that they have is exactly how did you dismember Shad?
Nice.
Did you cut arms, or I mean, was it just internal organs, or?
So you started on the head, right?
Yeah, and then I don't know where I went from there. I just want to.
Did you cut it, or did you remove his arms?
Yeah.
Okay, can you show me where you would cut on the arms?
Right there.
Right at the elbows? Was this part of the arm left on?
You guys go in that blue bed.
Okay, look.
Yeah.
But you know that you cut off at the elbows?
Just want to address one thing. At the beginning of the video, she's wearing a yellow outfit. Toward the end, she's wearing a blue outfit. Can you explain that for the jury?
When she went to the hospital to have her thumb checked, the hospital changed her into the blue scrubs.
And then you indicated there was also the recorded interview from the 28th.
That this happened, and there was like the environment around me, and I'm just like, it feels like I'm on a hidden camera TV show right now. And I was like, what the? Yeah, I was going crazy. So I was really pissed off and freaking out a little bit.
So?
Yeah. Get Shad out of here. Can't just leave Shad here and be like, hey mom, Shad's dead. So, yeah.
I want to start with something that we heard yesterday, or actually Monday, during opening statements. Counsel told us that there's always two sides to every story, and with all due respect, this is not one of those stories. This is a story that pretty clearly shows what happened. It's a story of the defendant taking a dog collar that was around her friend's neck and pulling it so hard and for so long and with such force that it caused his death. That in that moment, she made a deliberate choice to end her friend's life. She then, after the fact, degrades his body, dismembering him and leaving his remains all over the house for his mother to find. And this isn't the state's story. This isn't law enforcement's story. It's the defendant's story, as you heard today. Count 1, first-degree intentional homicide. First, that the defendant caused the death of Shad, and that she, second, acted with intent to kill him. And again, as I already mentioned, as we go through these elements, you heard earlier this morning that the defendant is acknowledging every element that we hear. Okay. independent of the information you heard today, with the investigation you heard, the DNA, the other information, Dr. Tranchida's testimony, I would argue would prove all these elements as well. But you have on top of that the defendant's admissions to all these elements. Kind of looking at all the facts and circumstances that you see. In this case, you have the benefit of the defendant opening up her mind to you and telling you what her intent was here. But you also have other signs, right? So what does intent mean? That somebody had the mental purpose to do something, right? Some volition. She admits even that Shad's struggling in this moment, that he's fighting back, right? You heard from Dr. Tranchida as well about how it looked like at one point there were signs of that, where the collar slipped up along the tongue. She's telling you, I was waiting for him to die. I liked it. She figured I'm already this far, and she's pantomiming the act. It's like she's starting a lawnmower. That's how hard she's pulling on this chain. The first element, I think, is pretty clear, right? And we heard extensive testimony from many people, and we saw Dr. Tranchida's diagrams, and obviously I can't imagine this element is going to be in dispute, right? And so again, though, we have this concept of intent, the purpose to conceal a crime, right? And I mean, as you're instructed, you use your common sense. Like, why is somebody going to this length, not only cutting up a body? We heard from Dr. Tranchida about the multiple sort of start and stop kind of signs, the total evisceration of Shad, bagging him into other bags and attempting to carry out. Like, that's the intent, right? We use our common sense that's why you're doing that. But again, she was asked about this, the defendant. And remember in that February 28th interview, the second interview with Detective Graf and Detective Scanlon, she's saying exactly what her intent was, right? It was because there's other people in the house. Like, what am I going to do? Leave the body and have mom find it? It's kind of inferred by the fact that at the time that the defendant's telling you she's engaging in these acts, that Shad's deceased, right? So he's not in a position to consent. Okay. So those are the two elements for count 3. So in total, 6 elements for the 3 offenses. And again, you're given a lot of law on how to assess credibility of witnesses, and that's good, and you should follow it. Really, you kind of just use your common sense as jurors. And again, the defendant's telling you what happened, and there's nothing in the case to disbelieve what she's saying, right? You're instructed on what the burden of proof is and what it's not, right? It's a reasonable doubt, a reasonable hypothesis consistent with guilt, consistent with innocence. You should find the defendant not guilty. But you're not searching for doubt. You're ultimately searching for the truth. So even if it's a heavy burden, it doesn't mean the decision is difficult in cases. You are instructed not to search for doubt. You're to search for the truth.
She did say during the interview, I can't think right now. I'm effing nuts. She said that she was up all night, that the body would rebuild itself. She said weird, odd things. Consider her credibility. Consider what she says. Consider what she said to Detective Graf or Detective Scanlon. She said stuff, I would submit, that she said things that didn't make sense. She says, I have no idea to some of the questions that the detectives asked her. You remember seeing the video on the screen. I'd ask that you recall that she had inappropriate laughs, inappropriate smiling, odd responses. Now, I would argue that I would argue that it's not a clear case here. Was this an accidental death? Did Taylor Schabusiness kill Shad Therian? Was there intent to kill Shad Therian? Did Taylor Schabusiness have the mental purpose to kill Shad Therian? Different theories, different things for you to think about. You are all like analysts. And you have to assess and decipher the facts. The facts here are very complicated, confusing, unclear.
Person? And my understanding is that the jury has reached a verdict. Is that correct? Yes. Right. If you would hand that to the bailiff then, please. Okay. First verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Taylor Denise Schabusiness, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information, dated this date, July 26, 2023, signed by the foreperson. Second verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, find the defendant, Taylor Denise Schabusiness, guilty of mutilating a corpse as charged in count 2 of the information, dated this date, July 26, 2023, signed by the foreperson. The next verdict reads, we, the jury, find the defendant, Taylor Denise Schabusiness, guilty of third-degree sexual assault as charged in count 3 of the information, dated this date, 26th day of July, 2023, signed by the foreperson. The verdicts appear to be in order. Okay, be seated. You are the foreperson, is that correct? Yeah. If you could hand your verdict to the bailiff. Okay. The verdict seems to be in order, and I will read it as follows. Question 1. At the time the crimes were committed, did the defendant have a mental disease or mental defect? Answer, no. There's no answer then for question 2. It is dated this date, July 27, 2023, signed by the foreperson. There were no dissenting jurors. Is there a request by either of the parties to have the jury polled? Mr. Saunders? No. Mr. Froelich?
Yes.
All right. We did this the last time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to poll you again. I'm going to start in the back. Ma'am, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
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 Sir, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Ma'am, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Start down here. Sir, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Ma'am, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Sir, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Sir, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Ma'am, are these your verdicts?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, your service in this case is now completed. Many jurors ask if they are allowed to discuss the case with others after receipt of the verdict. Because your role in this case is over, you are not prohibited from discussing the case with anyone. However, you should know that you do not have to discuss the case with anyone or answer any questions about it from anyone other than from the court. This includes the parties, lawyers, the media, or anyone else. If you do decide to discuss this case with anyone, I would suggest you treat any discussion with a degree of solemnity, such that whatever you do say, you would be willing to say in the presence of your fellow jurors or under oath here in open court in the presence of the parties. It is in the public interest that there be the utmost freedom of debate in the jury room, and that jurors be permitted to express their views without fear of incurring the anger of any litigants or criticism of any person. Please respect the privacy of the views of your fellow jurors. Finally, I'd like to address you before you leave, so if you could just wait in the jury room for a few minutes, I'd appreciate that. And you may confer with me at any time before answering any questions from anyone. I wanted you to know that as well. And with that, we excuse the jury. All rise for the jury. Be seated. Then, having received this verdict as well as the prior two, does the state have a motion regarding the verdicts? Mr. Saunders.
I'd ask the court to accept the verdicts and enter a judgment of conviction. I do have a certified copy of a judgment of conviction, case 20 CF 998, as the basis of the repeater allegation in counts 1, 2, and 3 of information.
Those will be received. Mr. Froelich, any response to that request?
Your Honor, I bring a motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I believe there's ample testimony in the record that my client was suffering from a mental disease or defect at the time of these offenses, and that she lacked the substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct and conform her conduct to the requirements of the law. I'd ask that you consider all of the testimony from Dr. Lighton, who's a seasoned veteran in the field of psychology, and the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've listened to the entirety of the testimony over these last several days, and specifically regarding today's testimony with regard to the responsibility phase. I'm satisfied that the evidence is sufficient to support the jury's verdict, and I'm going to adjudge the defendant guilty on count 1 of first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater, count 2, mutilating a corpse as a repeater, and count 3, third-degree sexual assault as a repeater. I'm going to revoke bond at this time then.